This is Extra Paycheck Podcast, episode number 158.
You're listening to Extra Paycheck Podcast, where you will learn how to build and grow your own successful online business. Now, here's your host, Alex Soul.
Welcome to yet another episode of the Extra Paycheck Podcast. This is episode number 158, and today's special guest is Nicholas Belliveau. In this episode, we will be talking why everyone who ever wanted to be an entrepreneur should just go for it and try entrepreneurship. Enjoy today's episode. Hi, Nicholas, and welcome to the Extra Paycheck Podcast.
Hey, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Please tell us a little bit more about yourself and what is that you do right now.
Sure. Well, I'm an entrepreneur, photographer, and speaker. So I'm a fanatic of entrepreneurship, and I really enjoy public speaking. And currently I'm working mainly as a photographer, especially for weddings. So I really like that because weddings, especially in Montreal, are mostly in summer. So I get to do that and then travel in the colder months. So it's more of a lifestyle business for now. And it lets me work on a bunch of other projects in tandem with that.
Mm-hmm. That's really awesome. And you mentioned that magic word, entrepreneur. And knowing you personally, you told me that you've tried quite a few different things, and there are many like those entrepreneur incubators that you've been to. Can you guide us through a little bit of that, of your path? What have you been through, and what have you seen so far?
Absolutely. So right now I'm in my fifth startup incubator right now. And I've done so many because I wanted to see the different facets of entrepreneurship. I graduated in university with a Bachelor of Entrepreneurship, and that's where I really began to discover this community. So I've been an entrepreneur as long as I can remember, from like lemonade stands and garage sales at my parents' house. But I had three different tech startups. So my first one was while I was finishing high school, I was building custom-made desktop computers. Afterwards, in university, I worked on a project called Tactile, where I was trying to make it easier to eliminate the wallet, essentially, using your fingerprint. And most recently, which was my most prominent project, it was called Boutique. So this was co-founded. We were a team of 3 people, and we were trying to make it easier to buy shoes online. So we would use a 3D scanner to scan people's feet, and we developed an algorithm to calculate their morphology in order to recommend the right shoes in the right size. So essentially, it filtered the products. It was an API that would plug into the e-store of the shoe website, shoe store, to be able to really filter the products and really give each customer personalized experience and make sure they're happy with their purchase. Because when buying shoes online, I don't know if you ever tried it, but sometimes you get the wrong fit and it's just a pain having to return it. So we worked on that for 2 years, and that we participated in a bunch of different startup programs. It was my thesis for my bachelor as well. And in an academic setting, it went really, really well. We won a bunch of pitch competitions, but out in the real world, the issue was we focused too much on the technology and not finding our customers from day one. We spent a lot of effort trying to make the best product possible without focusing enough on the business model from the beginning. And that's really now what I'm trying to explore and see how I could help other entrepreneurs not make the same mistakes I have.
Mm-hmm. So basically, I guess at that point, the MVP should have been your priority, the minimum viable product. I think that's what it's called.
Exactly.
To measure the actual demand. So what's happening with that project right now?
Well, we dropped it completely in 2016. It had been exactly 2 years we were working on it. Mm-hmm. And as a team, we kind of lost some motivation since we were struggling to be able to find our first customer. So we didn't see how it'd be viable to keep going any further. Money was getting tight on all of our sides, and we figured, look, we weren't in the red. It was just zero. So instead of digging a deeper hole, we rather just stop there. It was an awesome experience, and we figured we could take those learnings and apply them to our own respective projects moving forward.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting, and I love that story because a lot of people who looked into entrepreneurship or just dreaming about doing something on their own, right? All they seem to notice is these like huge success stories, that's these startups that seem to have appeared out of nowhere, although there probably has been years and millions of dollars invested. But all people see is success and be like, okay, that's awesome. I want to be an entrepreneur. I'm just going to make something great. And look at all these people that succeeded. I'm going to be the same.
Yeah.
But it's far from the reality of entrepreneurship.
Absolutely. It's not just, getting a good logo, a nice looking website, and one day to the next it's taking off. There's so much in the back scene that you don't see, and that when you don't actually do it, you don't realize. It could be, as simple as your shareholder agreement between your partners. It's a lot of people view entrepreneurship as something really exciting. And it is, but there's a lot that you have to learn while doing. I'm in my 5th program, and seeing people trying to learn it just on a school bench, I don't think is the right approach. You have to try it. And when I see other people who've always been in more of the corporate life and are approaching their 30s, or I've met so many people who are like, oh, I wish I'd be able to do what you do, try entrepreneurship, have my own company. And I don't understand what is holding people back that much. Yes, there's risk. Yes, there's financial insecurity. But by doing it, that's how you learn. And I really don't see them as failures if it doesn't work. It's learning opportunities that are the best possible learning opportunities to be able to eventually have a company that works.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense. And Nicholas, last time we spoke, it was at the Montreal Plus e-commerce event. And to those listening to this podcast, if you are based in Montreal or around Montreal, you haven't heard of it, it's a monthly e-commerce event that happens in Montreal. And so we had this idea that we were throwing around that on this podcast, we should talk about the reason or the reasons why everyone who ever thought of entrepreneurship should actually try it. They shouldn't just talk about it or think about it. They must try it. Right?
Absolutely.
So what are some of the reasons why everybody must do it?
Well, like I was saying earlier, it's the best school. It really is. And it applies to so many things in life. Moving forward, like for especially millennials, the landscape of jobs is changing. I don't believe people need to work 80, 90, 100 hours a week, or even the more regular 40 hour work week. I think that's not necessarily mandatory anymore. There's so many ways to build a business based around what you enjoy doing. Here, I think that's really the fundamental thing. In life, you should have fun. So if you're going to have a job, make it the best job, your dream job. Everybody today has the opportunity to create their dream job. So if you have that opportunity in front of you, why don't you grab it? That's how I view it. The resources are just so abundant. Anything you want to learn, you have your computer, you have your smartphone, you want to document, you could do anything. The tools are getting so much cheaper, so much more accessible. It's really I think, an awesome time to be alive.
So do you think it's easier now to start any kind of business venture than it was, let's say, 15 years ago?
Yeah, I would think so, because the number one thing of a business is to have clients, right?
Yeah.
A business doesn't exist without clients. That was my mistake that I learned 2 years ago, and now that's really the driving force behind what I do for any business project. So I think, yes, it's absolutely much easier to have a business today because it's so much easier to speak with your customers. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, you name it. Being able to talk with your customers is so much easier today. And people are able to find you, and then you're able to start that dialogue. So it's a time to really embrace that. And also on that point, it comes down to personal branding. So your business starts with you. I'm really becoming a huge fan of solopreneurship. I read the book $100 Startup by Chris Guilbeault. I highly recommend it to anybody who's interested to test out entrepreneurship, because a lot of people view entrepreneurship as building a giant business, really scaling. I was in the tech field, and you see a lot of incubators and accelerators act on that. And it's normal because the governments need to put their resources towards businesses that are going to create value for society. But at the same time, small businesses, small solo entrepreneurs also create a lot of value for the economy. And that is something that's really accessible for everybody. So with the tools you have today with the internet, yeah, it's super easy to be an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. And that's what I tell people about even what I do, affiliate marketing mostly. I tell people it's not that it's saturated compared to 10 years ago when I started. We have more and more customers or people that have access to internet from all around the world.
Yeah.
That's number one. Every day we have more potential customers coming into this online space. And second of all, as you said already a few times by now, there are so many resources and tools that we didn't have before that it just makes the whole process of learning much easier and faster than it used to be.
Yeah.
And all right, Nicholas, so I have another question here for you. You do not have a mortgage, do you?
Thankfully, no, I do not.
Okay, so let's look into that because that's a question or a complaint that I get quite often on my YouTube videos, on my podcasts, sure. And these negative people, haters as we call them, which is good. I like seeing that because it means that I touch someone, strongly enough for them to react and to leave a comment. And so a lot of these people would say something like, okay, yeah, it's easy for you to talk, Nicholas, right? You don't have a mortgage. You don't have kids.
Right.
You do any kind of business. You just jump into it and, you do it. But John is, let's say, 39 years old. He has a 2-year-old kid, and he also has a mortgage that he got into 3 years ago.
Yeah.
He thinks that he wants to be an entrepreneur, but he tells you that he works, let's say he has a typical job, 40 hours a week, not too bad, but then he has to spend some time with the kid. Then he has to, take his wife out on a date every Friday or Saturday, whatever.
He has to or he wants to? I hope he wants to.
Well, regardless. I mean, he has some family obligations, which does take away from your time. From your free time. So how does that person get into entrepreneurship of any kind while trying to balance all of that?
Great question. Well, hello, John. So this is going to be right for you. First, your wife, she sounds like an awesome girl. If you guys are going out that often on dates, that sounds pretty cool. Second of all, look, yes, with the mortgage and kids, entrepreneurship, as you get older, gets more and more difficult. So first off, for anybody who feels the situation you're in, it has to be put into perspective. There could always be a more difficult situation than the one you're in. Sure, I don't have a mortgage and I don't have a kid, but look, John, you could, I don't know, have a horrible medical condition. You maybe have debt from a failed company from before, and the situation could be even worse. So putting the first step is not to make that situation an excuse for not starting. That's first and foremost. Because once you put everything in perspective, there's always a way to find a solution. That is, I think, the definition of entrepreneurship. It's problem solving. So the first step is problem solving of your life situation. And then, what people typically say, it's because of money, because of the financial insecurity of starting a business. I see it two ways. Some people believe that they have to put a lot of money to start, like thousands and thousands of dollars. They think of loans. People think of venture capitalists. And then there's the other school of thought, which is bootstrapping, which is what I believe in 110%. You find your first customers before you start investing money, right? You really be lean and quick to get onto the market. So keep your job, keep your 40-hour-a-week job and work on it on the side until you see that you have enough traction to leave it. Worst case, if you leave it and it doesn't work, you'll be able to find another job. There's always jobs. People always will hire other people, but not everybody is willing to stop that and go do their own thing. When my startup failed back in 2016, I had maybe 4 months left of cash. I figured now that tech startup didn't work, I'll do photography. It was October 2016, and I began to, do some online marketing. I revamped my Instagram, my Facebook, really pushing some YouTube videos, creating as much content as I could. I put all my effort in it, and it still didn't work. Heading February, I had maybe 2 weeks left of money until I was dead broke. So what I started doing as of January, looking for a job. Never had a full-time job, and I found a job in sales at a really cool company that ended up being a wonderful experience. Was there for 6 months, but then said, you know what? It's not for me. I want to try entrepreneurship again because that's who I am. I came back in October now 2017 and tried doing photography again full time. And now it's working. Now I've been doing it for the last 6 months full time, and my projections are looking really good. So it's about putting everything in perspective, realizing that your situation isn't that bad and that it's better trying, being smart about it, not keeping yourself like with two weeks of money in the bank and saying, okay, I'll try now. And I think just finding your customers before spending money, make money before spending money is the most fundamental advice.
That's a great advice right here. And Nicholas, what do you think about comfort zones?
What do you mean by that?
Okay, so let me elaborate a little bit on that. So I'm not talking about people that want to go into entrepreneurship necessarily, but even people, because I know quite a few people that have jobs, like typical regular jobs. They don't care about entrepreneurship. They love that as they call, that safety net, which I don't believe exists, because companies do, shut down or downsize. Just look at Yellow Pages, what happened recently, 500 people laid off in Canada. Right? There's no safety net. But so a lot of people, they have their jobs and they actually love what they do. However, they don't love the company they work with, or they hit that the top mark, the top level, that they can't have any more growth and they can't really have any higher salary, but they're stuck in the job because they think that, it's safe. They've been there for a long time. They found this comfort zone where money is kind of enough, and they're comfortable around the company. They know people that work there. And although they're probably better jobs in the same exactly field with much better companies and better perspectives, yet these people will never leave their comfort zone. This is why they wouldn't get that new job. And in entrepreneurship, do you think it's the same kind of thing for a lot of people, where it's simply the comfort zone? They don't want to take a risk, not because they're really scared about the money, but it's just that comfort thing that keeps them back.
Yeah, perhaps. I'm trying to think of, people who. It's a good question. Yeah, people like status quo, right? You like doing what you know and sticking with it because it's worked in the past. It should work in the future. I honestly, I commend people that are who enjoy their full-time job and love it, and for them, their life and work are completely two separate things, and they punch in, punch out, and they don't even think twice about it. They're happy with that. I'm kind of jealous sometimes of that lifestyle because it's easier in a way. They don't have the wheel turning in the back of their heads all the time. I'm the contrary. Like, life and work for me is completely blended. I can't complain. I love it. But, I could be working at 2 a.m. just because I feel like it. But going out of your comfort zone, the biggest thing I see for going out of your comfort zone actually with entrepreneurship is it comes back to clients. It's getting your first clients. People are scared to do that. And that applies to, I think, absolutely almost every entrepreneur there ever was. It's daunting because you say, okay, I have this thing, and now I have to go convince somebody to buy it and take their money. I have to show them that this is good enough, for them to spend their hard-earned money. I think that's the biggest step that freaks a lot of people, and it keeps freaking people out. To this day, it scares me, and I think it always was. It gives you the butterflies in your stomach. But you have to start, I guess, enjoying that in a way. So
I guess in a way it's a fear of rejection that is one of the biggest things that holds us back.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
All right, makes sense. And have you ever watched the Yes Theory on YouTube?
Yeah, I discovered them a little while ago. I love what they do.
Yeah, that's another suggestion to the listeners. So these guys are originally from Montreal. I think they're based out of in LA right now.
Gotta meet them.
Yeah. And one of their big things, what they do is basically force themselves every day to get out of that comfort zone and do things that, are not routine and that most people wouldn't be comfortable with. As simple as walking up to strangers and asking them a question or asking them for a favor, right?
Yeah, they walked around in Hollywood with a box of donuts and rang at the homes of mansions, multi-million-dollar mansions, to say, "Hey, do you want to eat a donut with us?" It's great. It's great.
They managed to meet the Prime Minister of Canada.
Yeah.
As well as some other really cool people by simply getting out of the comfort zone and not giving in into the fear of rejection.
And the best part about it was 4 guys that I think they met on a trip or something.
Yeah.
They didn't know each other, and then they met and they're like, "Let's start a YouTube channel." And the 4 of them had no connection prior, and now they're doing this full time. It's really amazing.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. All right, Nicholas, so let's get back to your story. And I've noticed that you've been talking, and not just talking, doing a lot of stuff involving speaking engagements and doing presentations and just, being on the stage.
Yeah.
What's all that about?
So my biggest passion, which is weird for a lot of people to hear, but it is public speaking. I fell in love with public speaking. I would say my first years of university, I was an extremely shy kid. I really hated meeting people. When somebody would ring the doorbell at my parents' house, I'd literally go hide behind the couch, to give you an idea how shy I was. But today, I love being on stage because it's a way of sharing and empowering and inspiring people like nothing else can. I see a lot of people, for example, podcasts or YouTube. I think that's awesome, and I wish I did more. But being on stage, having that live connection is something that is really attractive to me because you have that eye contact, and I feel like I'm really able to move people with my words. So it's kind of addicting in a way. But I've done. I started with pitch competitions and academic competitions, and that's when I realized there was something going for me. I'd win a bunch of speaking contests. And in my last year of university, I was approached to be the host of the school's TV show, which was in French. And that was pretty daunting for me. I've been to French school all my life, but I'm much more comfortable speaking in English than in French. So that was a great opportunity, and it went really, really well. It was called La Chaise Bleue. And following that, especially after my startup, the 3D shoe scanning one, boutique, closed, I really slowed down with public speaking. I, was doing photography. It didn't work. Went to work in sales, did that. And I began missing it a lot. I wasn't sure how I'd get back into it. So I did 2 things. Well, actually 3 things. First, I joined improv. I highly recommend that to I think everyone, no matter what you do in life. Improv is a great way. 1, it's super entertaining, and 2, you really develop communication skills, both verbal and especially nonverbal. It's great for developing nonverbal communication skills. 2, I joined Toastmasters. So Toastmasters is a international organization. There's over 16,000 clubs worldwide. Wow. Where you practice public speaking and leadership. So it's based on there's weekly meetings. It's relatively cheap. It's about $150 a year to be a member. So for 1 meeting a week, it comes to $3-4 a meeting. And yeah, it's really focused on a feedback loop and the learn by doing mentality. So you prepare a speech or you improvise a speech. There's 2 sections in every meeting. You deliver it to the audience. Everybody evaluates and comes back and gives you feedback so you can improve for the next time. So I joined that now 2 months ago. So I'm really loving it since that's letting me speak on a weekly basis. And I actually just won the provincial contest for the best improvised speech. So now I'm going to the national. It's the district. It's called the district district conference. So it's pretty much like the national level, since it's the highest level I could go. The one after is international, but doesn't apply to that category. It's only for the prepared speeches. So since I'm doing improv, the next one's the last. But yeah, Toastmasters is amazing. There's clubs everywhere. Just go on meetup.com and I'm sure you'll find one near you. So do that. And number 3 was I've been hosting some interviews and conferences. I had the honor of being able to interview the U.S. Consul General of Montreal, Mr.
Awesome.
Robert Thomas. And then I also interviewed the Ambassador of France to Canada last month or 2 months ago. So that's been really cool. And that's just because people noticed me either through the videos or they saw me at speeches and saw that, well, I'm a pretty good public speaker and I really enjoy it. And I think that really comes through when I'm on stage. So there you go. That's my spiel on public speaking.
Thanks for sharing that. That's a great story and very interesting. And especially that, since I met you, I don't know how long ago we met. It's probably less than a year ago.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That how you began the story that when the doorbell would ring, you would run and hide behind the couch. When I met you, I had the impression that you're the kind of guy that would be the first one to run to the door and open it and greet the people, right?
Yeah. No, I changed. I changed a lot since I was young.
Yeah, huge difference. And Nicholas, I get it that it's your passion. You really love doing that, and I applaud that. I think everyone should spend a lot of time and put in a lot of effort into something they love doing because, well, it doesn't feel like you're investing time and effort into it if you really love it, right? But how do you think you'll be able to monetize that in the future and turn that into, something more entrepreneurial and actually something that earns you money?
Right. Well, that's my existential question you're pressing on there, Alex. It's it's not necessarily obvious, but I'm slowly finding ways. So but to introduce how I see I'm going to do it, I think I'll explain the big problem I've been having, which is wearing too many hats. So when we started this episode, I told you I was an entrepreneur, photographer, and speaker. Well, in public branding or branding in general, you want to be known for one thing. People can't realize that you're wearing many hats. You have to be very clear on your messaging. So even just within photography, I do weddings, but I also like portraiture and I do events and I do some corporate work. But I realized very quickly I had to really focus in and say, look, I'm a wedding photographer. That's it. That's all. And people could still contact me for other things. But now I was like, well, I want to get more into public speaking. I have to drop down the photography, but that's my bread and butter. That's, how I'm paying my bills. How do I make that switch? So I recently, today, maybe you just saw, I just did a rebranding on my Facebook page where I changed my profile picture and my cover picture to announce the launch of a new YouTube channel where I'm collaborating with 2 videographers, Brandon and John from Live City, Montreal, where we're creating content. And that's pretty much the avenue I see for getting into public speaking is using the web. It's, in my opinion, such a huge window of opportunity for everyone to be able to get noticed. And it's not the type of public speaking I enjoy most. Like I was telling you earlier, what I really enjoy is being on stage and being in people in live. But on camera is how, people, I could have a much wider audience much quicker than being on stage. And it's saved for years. So it's it's an investment in my brand. And so for this, we're going to be giving photography classes in a 60-second format. So we're starting off giving content for beginners, which is the strategy behind it is it's going to give more credibility and visibility for my photography brand. And at the same time, show my public speaking abilities. And now it's in English. We're also potentially going to do one in French. And long-term monetization. Well, it's the most direct way is being a keynote speaker for events. My issue is I don't have a topic per se that I'm really grounded on or an expert in to be able to speak about. Mm-hmm. So for now, I'm not thinking of monetization of speaking per se. I'm doing it for fun, building up my portfolio, getting better at it, meeting contacts, trying to plug myself in events I can, or podcasts like yours. I spoke to you, said, hey, that I'm trying to do more public speaking, and getting on a podcast could only benefit me. So I can't really tell you my monetization strategy. A lot of people struggle with that when they want to be, so to speak, an influencer. That's not what's necessarily interesting to me in the immediate. It's more, I'd say, building my portfolio like a photographer. It's parallel to what a photographer does. Before they're able to get high-paying jobs, they build their portfolio, and you get hired for the work that people have seen you do. So that's, I think, the same strategy that I've done for photography that I'm now going to be doing for public speaking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think basically what all the speaking is doing right now too is opening a lot of doors and allowing you to meet people that you wouldn't have met otherwise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and not even just speaking, saying I'm interested. This is one thing I noticed. Saying that I'm interested and that I love, I'm passionate about public speaking is opening up doors at that, because it's so rare for people to say that they actually enjoy public speaking. Most people stray away from it as far as they can. They're terrified of public speaking, or they feel really uncomfortable. They'll do it if they have to, but it's not something they'll do voluntarily. Me, it's the opposite. Me, I'm like, yo, you need a speaker? I'm here. I'm your guy.
Yeah, totally. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And
I've had the same kind of struggle when people would ask me, how do I make money out of this very podcast?
Yeah.
And
so it's affiliate marketing, right?
Well, the thing is, I don't have an answer. Like, there is no direct income from the podcast, right? I don't run ads in my podcast. I don't promote anything in the podcast. It's just content. It's just conversations such as this one.
Right.
But see, the big benefit for me is meeting people, meeting entrepreneurs, talking to people like you. And, indirectly, it builds up that portfolio. It builds up that, content for the whole brand. And, it leads more people to my website, and people are more curious about what I do. And that's how they find out eventually my, affiliate links and click on them and buy stuff. So it's this whole big thing that's, if you ask me about a podcast directly, it's not monetized directly,
right?
But indirectly, it does bring, value to my business.
Yeah. And your personal brand as well, right?
Yeah.
It's not only about who you know, it's who knows you. So it's, you know where I'm getting that from.
Yeah, but that's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah. So it's people, the guests that you get to interview, they now know you for as a podcaster, and all the guests that listen, well, you're just growing your audience that way. And when you have another project that you want to launch, well, people will be listening because you already grabbed their attention and you've been giving them value. So you have their trust.
Yeah, totally. And I think it's very important, especially in an online business.
Yeah.
If people don't trust you, then, you're going to have a bad time.
Yeah. No, you have to be authentic. You have to, give them, I think education or entertainment are the two ways to go about it in 2018 moving forward. I think the best way is edutainment, entertaining education that's easy and digestible.
Edutainment, that's an awesome word.
Thank you. Does it exist? I think it exists.
Wait,
if I could coin that, I am down. I'll write a blog post later.
Okay, so before I release that episode, you should do a quick search and, register edutainment.com.
This edutainment definition.
Yeah, there you go. Do
Entertainment, especially video games with an educational aspect. Damn, we're so close to being rich, Alex. We were so close.
Next time.
We're not getting an extra paycheck from that one.
Yeah, too bad. All right, Nicholas. So as we're approaching to the end of this podcast, I would ask you one more thing. What would be your biggest and most important advice to people who are just launching their business or thinking about starting anything really, any kind of a business venture? What would be your most important advice to them?
Find your first customer. As easy as that. And it sounds easy. It is tough. It can be super easy or super tough. But find your first customer and make sure you get a second and then a third and then a fourth and then a fifth. The first customer is not your brother that, buys your $5 postcard for your new online postcard business. No, it's somebody you don't know, that you haven't met before necessarily, and that you really start getting customers in the door or on your website or however you sell, and you start having cash flow. That was my biggest mistake, and now it's my biggest learning. It's finding your customer. Don't waste any more energy than you need to by, trying to do crazy marketing campaigns or finding the best developer for your app or building a business plan to go approach VCs. Nobody's going to, first, a lot of people think they're going to get investments and start working on how they're going to get investments without having customers. That doesn't work. So look, find your customers, and through them, you will learn how to build your business. It's easy as that.
Awesome. Great advice, Nicholas. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, anytime.
And I really like that point that you mentioned, don't ask your brother or your cousin to buy your first thing. And something very relevant I've heard about a long time ago. I think it was from Tim Ferriss. And he said the biggest validation of your idea, for your product, your business, what you just mentioned, is actually getting the cash flow. And that, I think, is a big mistake that people fall into when they ask people around them, oh, I have this great idea for business. Would you buy my product or my service? And of course, people, especially, people that know you, they'll tell you, yes, that's awesome. They want to encourage you.
Yeah.
But it's until they actually give you the money for it,
sure.
it doesn't count. It's not validation. It's just, once again, dreaming.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
So cash flow, get your customers, start getting money rolling in. That's when you start working harder on whatever you're doing.
Yeah, and for first business, figure out there's always a way to lower costs. So honestly, there's ways to get your first customer without spending a cent. Like, look at what you have, look at the resources around you, look at who you know. Don't start putting in money until you know you're getting money back, that there's a return on investment. So get your first customers, and then then you figure out how to get more, and then you need money to be able to get those more. That's okay. That's called return on investment. You're putting in money, you're calculating how much money you put in to get how much back. Then that's cool. But first customer, don't spend, and get them as quickly as possible.
All right. That's awesome. Great advice, Nicholas. And before you go, where can people go to find you and learn more about you and what you do?
Well, Instagram, that's pretty much my main place. I've at Nick, Nick _ Belliveau, Belliveau. And my photography Instagram is at nbphoto1. You could also check out my new YouTube page, which is going to be lit, which is called 60 Seconds Per Frame. I'll be posting it a lot on my Instagram, so you'll be able to see it there as well.
Awesome. Thank you. And I already like some of the videos on that new YouTube account.
You saw them?
Yes, I already watched those videos, and I'm like, oh, that's really cool. That's straight to the point.
Awesome. Yeah, we wanted to have at least a bit of content before, when we launch. So we put out some, but then they're going to be launching every Monday. Yeah,
that's always that's a great idea, because if somebody stumbles upon a YouTube channel with just one video, they don't know if it's, if they should stick with it, if they're going to be any more content coming out. If there's at least a few videos, then you kind of, see that they're serious, that this account has potential.
Yeah. Do you think it has potential, Alex?
You're putting me on the spot here. So the channel is, so far, what I've seen is about photography.
Correct.
Right. And the thing is that I've watched quite a few videos from different people on the same subject, because it's, it's not a passion, but it's something that interests me, just using the camera properly for my own things, pictures that I take for me or videos that I make. So, from my experience, there's a lot of content on that subject.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of content. So of course it has potential if you look at it this way. There is a lot of content simply because there's a lot of demand.
Right.
Now, the question is, how would you compete with others? And that's the question that, applies to any business, any YouTube channel, any Instagram account. How are you going to stand out from the crowd? And that, we'll have to see.
Yeah. I got some ideas. I'll keep you posted on that.
Yeah.
I think
Well, I love the 60-second format, like from the get-go, right? It's not, I don't have to watch a 15-minute or 17-minute tutorial on what shutter speed is.
Right.
And a lot of people do that. They provide you that, and then, it's kind of really waste of time, because you don't need to spend all the time learning about something that could be explained in 60 seconds and less.
Yeah. Exactly.
So yeah, I think there is potential. I'm really curious and excited to see where it's going to go.
Awesome. Well, likewise, and thank you once again for having me on your show, man. It was interesting conversation, and I'm looking forward to hearing your next guests and seeing how far this goes.
All right, man. Thank you so much for coming in. Thank you for giving us your time, your advice, your tips, and sharing your life experiences. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So until à bientôt, Alex.
Yeah, see you next time.
All right, cheers.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this week's episode of the Extra Paycheck Podcast. Please head over to extrapodcast.com/158. This is where I'll be putting up show notes page for today's episode and all the resources mentioned today. Also head over to extrapodcast.com/YouTube in order to subscribe to Extra Paycheck's channel on YouTube, as well as extrapodcast.com/iTunes in order to subscribe to the show on iTunes. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll talk to you next Monday.